Well, thank you, Paige, and hello, everyone. Wow, I heard a lot about what managers do, and today we're in for a special treat. I believe managers are the backbone of the community association industry, and excellent managers are the ones we want to savor because, as you've heard, and as all of you in attendance know, through all types of physical, financial, and personality obstacles, they serve their communities. And so we want to savor the excellent ones today. Their work, well done, creates a smoothly running organization with community spirit, minimized conflict, and maximized property values. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Manager of the Year program, it's a contest open to all managers across the United States in one of two categories: on-site managers and portfolio managers. Tiffany was the on-site winner, and Pam was the portfolio manager winner. There is no entry fee. It's completely underwritten by sponsors. There are 3 stages to the contest to gradually sift through all the candidates, and the winners get celebrated and receive cash prizes. And as you heard, everyone's been muted today, but we want to get you involved in today's program. So look on your control panel for something that looks like what you see on screen, a little hands raised icon, and grab your mouse and click the hands raised icon if you're ready for us to get started on the program. So I'm going to click on my screen to look at the attendee list. There you go. Okay, I'm seeing hands go up all up and down the list. Thank you very much. I'm going to click hands down and we'll get started on the program. Tiffany, let's start with you.
Hi, Robert. Thank you. Just a little bit about me. I was hired as the general manager of Fairway Village in 2016. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida and kind of fell into being a licensed community manager in Florida. It was a good fit with my background in property management and real estate and my education. We have a lot of things going on. We call Fairway Village the place that rocks and rolls.
Wait. I'm from California. I don't think you have that on me. We have earthquakes out here.
True. Maybe I should call it, well, we can't be the Windy City. Chicago's already got that.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
We're a self-managed cooperative with 751 homes, as Paige mentioned earlier, on 128 acres. We have a private golf course, and we're 55 plus, very active community with over 50 social activities.
A lot going on. Tell everyone where Largo is in Florida.
Largo is in the Tampa Bay area, so we're right on the central west coast on the Gulf side.
Fantastic.
All right, so first I'd like to really thank Robert and all of the sponsors of this competition, because it really has made a difference in my life and really challenged me to kind of step my career up to the next level. And part of that is sharing some of my experiences with CAMs. So 3 topics that I thought would be something we all can share in is technology, communication, and challenges. And there you'll see one of my favorite quotes by Bill Gates is that leaders are those who empower others. And I try to live that as much as possible in my own leadership.
751 homeowners, you need a team there.
Yes, we have a team of 12. We have 8 full-time employees and 4 part-time employees, and we're all rocking and rolling. The residents are rocking and rolling, and so are we.
Fantastic.
Of course, having a community this large, technology is a major part of our community, and we've actually kind of stepped into the 21st century over the past few years. It's not always painless, and I found that 3 of the key elements when I'm considering a change in technology are the following. I'm sure you've had, technology change just as you're learning it, or a piece of equipment that changes. And the 3 things that I try to take in consideration is to identify, if an improvement is needed and where, who it will impact. So involving the people who may be impacted by the change and getting their feedback. And if it sounds like it makes sense and is needed, implementing it and making sure that, everybody's on board to go forward with the new technology. A perfect example of that is our property management software system that we implemented in 2018 called TOPS One. We basically went from thousands and thousands of Word and Excel documents and paper documents and offsite accounting with QuickBooks, cutting checks and courieing them back to the office. And we were kind of out of the loop when it came to technology and that. And TOPS brought us into the 21st century and really has helped make us more efficient and put information at our fingertips and our residents' fingertips because they can see their accounts with that.
Did you drive that, or was that a board member driven change?
It was something that I recommended. Coming from portfolio management into a self-managed community, I kind of was surprised and a little overwhelmed looking at all these different files and folders, and I was like, wow, how am I going to find everything? And so the board was very interested in kind of getting everything organized and in one place, and so they were very instrumental in getting that software passed through, and we ended up saving about 70% in our accounting fees, so it was a win-win.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. Another item that I use, and I actually use the free option, is MailChimp, and I do that to avoid being blacklisted. It just takes a couple of emails with all of our different residents who are signed up to receive emails for my personal work email to get blacklisted because of the number of people I'm trying to send a message to. So I found MailChimp, and it's been very helpful in getting communications out to people and not running into that problem. And we're currently taking on electronic voting. We're actually just now instituting that to get people signed up so they can vote electronically instead of trying to remember which envelope the ballot goes into and putting the envelope inside the envelope and all of that fun things that happen during an election. So we're just getting our feet wet on that, so I'll have to keep you updated on how that goes. Yeah,
but again, with 751, that's a lot of ballots to count. It's not like you've got a cute little 35-unit association and the stack of ballots is a pretty small stack.
Yeah, it takes, I have two assistants here, and we're busy from before the meeting starts to well into the meeting, you know, just trying to organize that whole system and get things counted. And we have a team of people that help us, volunteers from the community. And yeah, it takes a lot of people to get those counted. So electronic voting would certainly cut down on that time.
Oh, that sounds like a great move.
Thank you. Another key, probably the key thing in being a community manager is communication. Not just communication, but balancing that and reaching the right people with the right message. That's frequently a challenge for me. And some of the techniques that I try to keep in mind is keeping my team in the loop. If they know what's going on, a lot of times they can field questions and not be caught off guard. So it creates less stress if they're in the loop. The mass communication that I just mentioned, you know, when, who, how, and why, you know, when is it appropriate to use mass communication? I do that frequently with, we have a peak and a non-peak season. And so there's a part of the year where a lot of our residents are not here. And mass communication is really helpful when I'm trying to speak to everyone, no matter where they are, and keep them updated. They especially like the updates when we have some rough weather.
Yep. No, I can imagine that.
And then, yep, absolutely. And then the emergency alert system is great for reaching, you know, many people quickly, and we can use that system. Say we have a water shut off, we can reach, you know, just the people in, say, the 300 or the 400s without, you know, reaching everybody at once. We can kind of fine tune that down to who we're trying to reach. So that actually we use, they can sign up to get a telephone call, an email, a text message, or all three if they want. And I found that to be really helpful in getting information to residents quickly.
Is that another standalone software, or is that built into something that you already have?
Right now it's standalone. We are going to be forming an IT committee here in the near future to kind of look at different things. One thing that TOPS One has given us is the opportunity to partner with different vendors. The host vendor is actually one that is very familiar with Florida law, and you know, they know all the electronic voting legislation and everything in this state, and they're teamed up with TOPS One so that they automatically pull information and update that information straight from what we enter into TOPS 1. The emergency alert system is something that we currently keep updated on our own, but we're hoping to kind of move that into the TOPS 1 realm so that information is only pulled from one source.
Very nice, very nice.
Reaching the right people is critical. I'm sure managers, whether you're in a portfolio or a self-managed or even an on-site position, you have, your team, your residents, and how do you balance that? I think making sure that your team, whether it be, the employees or your coworkers, the board, committees, or even vendors, keeping them updated and in the loop, and choosing whether it's email, phone, or face-to-face really depends on what you're communicating with them. But just being considerate of how information will be received and what's the appropriate form, I think is really important. Residents, you can reach them in so many ways, and here we have residents that are tech savvy, and then we have some that don't necessarily embrace technology. So we still have a paper newsletter, which is also available online, and different things that we use in the community, like bulletin boards. And of course, we have the website. And so there's a lot of different avenues, and I think it just depends on what your message is and how quickly you need to get it out, which avenue you use. And of course, as a manager, you've got you got information coming in and information going out. I think balance is really important, and setting controls on some of that technology and communication. So auto response for emails when it's necessary is really helpful. Letting people know, hey, I've received your email and I'll get back to you in whatever it is, 24, 48 hours, or a detailed voice message for your cell or office lines. And for example, on my cell phone, after hours, I'm not available unless it's for an emergency. So I outline, kind of what they need to do. Leave your name, number, and what the emergency is. And I tell them I'll call them back within 5 minutes. Or I leave the maintenance supervisor's phone number, because I could be in the shower or something. And if it's a true emergency, they need to have another number and who to reach. So that's just an example of how I kind of balance, especially emergency calls, and using settings to help filter emails so that priorities can, be taken care of without someone wondering, hey, where is she?
Yeah, where'd she go?
Right?
Right. Yeah.
I clicked send.
Yeah. In addition, I was thinking, as you're communicating to resident, it's tone of your message, because you can say there's a storm coming and we need to be prepared, and you can be confident, or you can say there's a storm coming, we need to be prepared, and that can scare people. So there's so many different ways that you communicate, not only, like you say, the different methods, but choice of words, all caps, lowercase, or tone of your voice in the auto response, or your greeting on your voicemail. There's so many things.
You're so right, Robert. It's all those things you have to take in consideration, and you actually covered a few of these, so we don't really have to spend a lot of time on this, but just a few things that I use to convey the right message is being proactive, kind of having templates made, so that I don't have to recreate a template every time, like if it's a notice or an email that I send out frequently. Just changing the content of that template is always helpful and saves time. Getting someone to proofread, because a lot of times as managers, we get interrupted and we may be in mid-thought and your sentence might be trailing off in a nowhere land.
I find my fingers go faster than my brain, and there will be typos.
I have that problem too, Robert.
Yeah.
Yep. Being concise, a lot of people, you lose them after a couple of sentences. So wordy communications sometimes lose their attention. And as you mentioned, Robert, the appropriate tone, always trying to keep things as upbeat as possible. I try to avoid negatives and just try to create energy, even if I'm delivering something that's maybe not the easiest news to deliver, trying not to bring people down with it. If a hurricane hit us and we've got to rebuild, I talk about how great everybody's jumped in and is ready to get us back on track.
Good, inspiring.
Yes. And challenges, yes, we all have these. I find challenges, I try to look at them as opportunities. As community managers, I think we probably face these on a daily basis, and a sense of humor definitely helps with these. As you see in my little concrete thing there, the ducks kind of derailed our sidewalk repairs.
That's you. That's not a stock photo.
That is not a stock photo. That's actually from here.
Oh, yikes. I figured that was a stock photo.
A few of my aha moments have been Hurricane Irma in 2017. I was all in the trenches, ready to stick it out, and then 5 o'clock that morning I woke up and they were calling for a Category 5 to come straight through our area. So my husband and I jumped in the car and headed towards North Carolina, and that wasn't too bad getting out of Florida, but getting back in was a whole another thing. Fortunately, I have a lot of Floridians here that just, they're not going to leave no matter what. And so I kind of directed my team by the phone, which thank goodness it worked in most of the areas I was going through. But that kind of told me I need to have kind of a second plan if I'm not going to be, boots on the ground. And to be honest, I wouldn't encourage anybody to stay for Category 5, but in Florida, you just don't know. It ended up hitting us at a very low 1, so I really didn't need to leave, but didn't know that, 12 hours before it hit.
Yep.
Enforcement is always fun. I'm sure a lot of managers out there are probably snickering about, oh, I love enforcement, right? When I first came on board, one of my tasks I was given from the board was to start a property inspection program. On our first inspection, we had over 400 homes and quite a few disgruntled residents. It wasn't exactly popular.
Yeah.
But it's taken time, and we've kind of worked together and overcome that resistance and gotten people around to thinking, hey, this benefits me and increases my property value. And we're very consistent in how we perform it, and we use a friendly phone call. That's part of it. But these were all things that we learned during the process. It just didn't come to us. So a friendly phone call is helpful before you send that first nasty gram. And just being consistent and fair with residents is what we found works best. And then creating the A-team, whether that's your employees, your board, your committees, finding the right people is really crucial, and vendors. Having a board certified attorney that knows about association management to help you out when the tough times hit, or funding reserves properly and finding that right reserve specialist. That's been extremely helpful for us. We're going to be replacing our clubhouse, and I don't know if I should. I was not paid to do this advertisement, but I like to say, Robert, although you're in California and I'm here in Florida, your team in Florida here has really helped us out and worked with us, and we appreciate that. It's helped our funding. I believe we increased it 30% over the past few years. So
well, that's it. I was sitting here trying to resist asking, well, who did your reserve study? Because I don't think I was even aware of that. But it is, thanks for.
I was kind of fighting back and forth and saying, am I allowed to say?
Yeah, I didn't know
association reserves?
Yeah, no, we have enough clients that I don't know all of them, and I'm glad to hear a good report on our Florida team.
Yeah, Will Simons and your team down here is doing a great job, and we appreciate it.
Good.
And other vendors are important too, like landscapers, painters, community managers know who they need. When you hire the wrong one, you remember it and you don't do it again.
Yep.
But I really enjoy connecting with people. So if there's any managers out there that'd like to connect with me, you have my email and my LinkedIn profile. I'd love to hear from you and share some stories. And just a closing thought, my favorite part of being a community manager is seeing the positive impact we have on a community. And so, even when it seems like you're having a bad day and nobody's happy with anything, you just have to remember that, you are making a difference, and give yourself a pat on the back when nobody else will.
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, that was fantastic. In the discussions that we've had preparing for this webinar, I appreciated your coolness, your humor, and you seem like the right person to have in a complicated spot to keep everyone together and to help them feel that it's going to be okay. So I appreciate that wonderful laugh that you have. Well, let's turn the page.
Thank you so much, Robert.
You're very welcome. Let's turn the page and let's hear a little bit from Pam Coleman. Pam.
Hi, how you doing?
Fantastic. Welcome.
It's good to be here. This is such a great opportunity to be able to share with everyone. And after 12 years of experience in this line of work, I hope that I can provide some really good tidbits for some people so that moving forward, they don't make the same mistakes I've made over 12 years.
Everyone has their share.
Definitely. I've been CMCA certified. I had worked in community management for 10 years and took a little bit of a break and came back to it about a year and a half ago. So I got recertified with my CMCA certification. I have a master's in business management, which I know has really helped me because an HOA is just a business. When you look at it, it's a business of helping people with their homes, and it's definitely very personal. I have a bachelor's in psychology, and some people have said, "Oh, does that you don't even use your degree?" And I'm like, I use it every
No,
day.
exactly. You are one of the few people who is
Every
actually
day.
using their college degree.
Definitely, because the psychology of understanding people and knowing it is a business, but it's very personal. This is
Yep.
where you live.
And
I
you're touching something very delicate because it's not just an asset. It's not just someone's stocks. This is their home. And you touch the core of their being when you're dealing with their home.
definitely, and that's why so many people are so sensitive about everything, and you have to make sure that you're very careful about that. It's not just something on your to-do list. It's where they live. And that has helped me a lot. I recently moved over to Advanced HOA Management, and I am working with them on some developer accounts and a couple of commercial accounts that are small strip malls in a smaller town called Timnath, which is near Fort Collins, which is about an hour and a half north of Denver, Colorado. So it's a little bit more in my neck of the woods. And I'm working with the developer accounts. So these are growing communities. They're getting their feet on the ground, so to speak. They can have as many as...
You're getting them started in the right direction.
Exactly. So they're going to have 745 homes that build out, but right now there's only 30 out there kind of situation. So it's a great way to get them started in the right direction. And while everybody's really positive and everybody's really involved with their community because they're new homeowners, they're excited to be part of this, and sometimes too excited, but yes. And it's a great place to be. Some of the tips that I have for success is to be honest and be genuine. People can tell a fake, and that's something I think I probably learned from my psych degree. And it's always better to tell someone something that they don't want to hear than to tell them something they want to hear, but it's wrong. Because eventually the truth will come out and it'll end up being worse. And if you don't know, that's okay. You're not going to know everything about this. You're not going to know legal and roofs and asphalt. So don't make it up. Go and tell them, I've got to get with the expert. I got to make sure this is really a problem. I've got to make sure that we're approaching this the right way. And I think adjusting to the personalities and the needs of your board or your owners, different types of communities, whether it's a condominium community or a single family home, then you need to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand where they're coming from so that you can better answer and better respond to what their concerns are. I think we all get that I want the answer right now moment. And there can be a certain level of pressure to, oh, I gotta get him this answer right now. But it's important to take that moment and make sure that you're paying attention to all of the details to find out all of the information so you don't just give half answers or second guess stuff. And if it is going to take some time, let them know. I've got to wait till I hear from the board member, or I've got to wait till I hear from the contractor, or it's on the attorney's schedule, and I will be getting back with you. And if it takes a little longer, it's always important to touch base with them and say, okay, it's taking a little longer than I thought, but this is what we've got so far. And I know that I've worked with a lot of people where it's like they say they're going to get back to you and then they never do. You're like, did they just forget about me?
Yeah. And you're worried, and all of a sudden you add worry to the list.
Exactly. So it's really important to let people know, I haven't forgotten about you. I am still working on this. I just am not able to find the answer right away because there's a lot of things that can slow you down. Meanwhile, they're sitting in their home and this is the only question they have for you. So you've got to make sure they know, yes, you really are working on it and you haven't forgotten about them. Because it's one of the complaints that I've heard back from some people when they've had other managers. They've told me, oh my gosh, I don't know if they're doing this or they're not. And so it's one thing that I've tried to learn from myself.
Yeah. We have an exercise that we do for new employees. We have a quick orientation, and either sometime in their first day or their second day, we assign them to answer the phones. And they think that's the craziest thing, but it's tremendous training because they start getting in the practice of saying, I don't know, but I will find out for you. And it teaches them to know that they don't now and they will never know all the answers, and it teaches them follow-up because they need to then figure it out and follow up with that person. And it changes also control from the person who called in or the person who emails having control of the conversation to now they can do the research, and now they can say, Mr. Johnson or whoever, I've got the answer to your question. We'll have this da 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 da, and it's an amazing lesson. But you've got an example here too that I want you to show.
Yes, I worked with Lennar Homes here in the Loveland, Northern Colorado area, and their homeowner representative was amazing. He never made any promises that he couldn't follow through on. And he was always able to tell people, this is what I can do for you. This is what I can't do. Let's work with what we can do. And he was always very good about referencing the documents. So you knew he was speaking with authority and knowledge. And when we would be in some of those turnover meetings, they can get pretty hot and people can get pretty upset. And he made a point not to argue with people because it tends to make it worse sometimes. And I always loved that he would just pause, and like, I don't know, I think he was counting to 5 or counting to 10 or something. And sometimes when he would do that, someone in the back would be like, oh yeah, they told us that when we closed on our house. I don't know why you didn't get that information. So he didn't need to look defensive because somebody else was already backing him up. Where if he would have jumped right in, he would have looked like they was arguing. He was trying to defend himself, that they didn't know what they were talking about. He just kind of let them figure it out on their own sometimes. And it was just a great learning lesson as far as being patient.
Yep.
The learning to adjust and adapt to different people that you're working with, because you don't just have one boss who's the owner of the company you're working for. You have many bosses. So being able to pay attention to their responses and their reactions when you deliver a message. Some people they want every single detail. They want to know exactly how you arrived at that, what's going on, and they want the step-by-step. And then some people just want you to sum up. So by watching their reactions, their facial expressions, their body language, you can kind of read that and see, what does this person need to meet? Do they need the step-by-step, or do they just want the answer and go on with life? So I think that is the biggest thing where I think my psychology has come into play.
In all your slides, I was thinking, she's a psych major. She's a psych major.
It's definitely true, because when you can read people and you can make that adjustment, it can help you have a better and a more positive relationship with your board members, with your contractors, with your homeowners, and it makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about technology, and I think Tiffany really touched on it a little bit earlier, is that you do have people in your communities and you have board members that are incredibly tech savvy and others that are not. And sometimes, especially in HOA management, we get a little bit sloppy about some of our acronyms, and not everybody knows what that is or what that means. So being careful not to do that, to use those acronyms, make sure that you explain what it means and go step by step with some of the different programs that you're using and some of the different things that you're looking at in their CCNRs or their declarations or whatever they want to call them, because so many people have different ideas and thoughts on that. They think the covenants are everything, and they don't always separate it out from these are the bylaws versus these are the covenants versus these are the rules and regulations. So explaining that, and then when you see all the technology, there's so many different programs out there, and they all do basically the same thing, but to be able to walk through whatever computer software that you're using so that you can explain to your homeowners and your board members, this is how you submit a request. This is how you complain about a violation. This is how you can get in touch with me, is really helpful. And some people are still they don't want to submit it through online. They want to make a phone call, or they want to stop by your office and they want to sit down and chat.
All types of people.
So you got to be very flexible with that and not try to push off the tech on people who don't want to hear it. Help explain it to them and try to get them used to it, but don't shove it down their throat.
Yeah.
I love the oops, I could have handled that better. I think we've all had one of those moments.
Well, I'm wondering if everyone found the typo that I saw in one of Tiffany's slides that I retyped.
I don't know, because I definitely have to have somebody double check me.
Well,
I
that's the lesson
not
here.
an English major.
That's the lesson here.
It is. And personally, I have that tendency to jump into a conversation. Somebody will send me that email and they'll ask this whole laundry list of questions. And if it's scrolled down past that reading pane, I jump back with, here's the answer. And they're like, what about the other 4 questions? And I'm like, oh, wait, what?
Right, at the bottom.
Right. So just to double check those emails. And when I do jump into that conversation, I'll send them that quick email back that says, yes, I've got it. And then they'll go, you've got what? And so you need to take a moment, make sure that you qualify what you're sending back, and then transposing numbers. Last year, I had 3 associations that all had special assessments.
Ooh,
and 2 of them, oh, exactly. 2 of them were like sister communities. They were literally across the street from each other. And both of them had a special assessment due to roof damage, and they were about the same amount. They were off. One was about $120 more than the other. So being careful when I responded to one association, not to get it confused with the other associations, because that would have made a mess.
Yep, right.
And then that clean email box.
Nirvana.
I like to make yes. Email is like the tide. You don't turn your back on it. And I don't live near an ocean, but I know that much. I definitely scrolling down to the end, and sometimes if you just pull up the message and as you're reading it through, answer the questions in the body of the email, possibly in a different color font, just to double check and make sure that it's all clear and you're answering. They can see this is the question you asked, this is exactly what the answer is. And sometimes if there's several questions, you may have quick answers for some and others are going to require more time. So you can let them know, here's the answer for these, but I'm still working on the answer to the rest of your email and I will be getting back to you on that.
Yep. And it's like you say at the bottom, it's their money. Act like you care. You have to remember and make them feel comfortable and confident that you will get back to them.
Exactly. That they can trust you.
Fantastic. Well, that's where we're at. Thank you, Pam. What you've said reminds us all that it's so much of being excellent in any profession is knowing how to work with the others, the people, the different types of people, and then just managing those simple details, double checking things, rereading things, making sure you've seen the entire instructions or listened to the end of a conversation, and then doing that over and over and over again on a daily basis. Well, because that's how we get to a great future. to experience a great future association, it takes a great manager on your team, running great dynamic board meetings, leading with confidence and with experience. And to everyone here with us today, I want to thank Tiffany and Pam. It's such an advantage for the associations they manage to have them taking care of business. And that's what you get from Manager of the Year winners: cool heads and great execution of the fundamentals. The Manager of the Year contest is a great platform that celebrates manager excellence, recognizing and rewarding the best in the industry. So for all of you in attendance, plan to throw your hat in the ring and apply for the 2020 contest and see how far you get. And of course, it's our pleasure as Association Reserves to use one of our monthly webinar programs to allow a couple of great managers to share their tips for professional success, what it looks like from their point of view. And as I said earlier, managers are the backbone of the community association industry, and excellent managers make life so much easier for vendors and business partners. So for more information on what we can do at Association Reserves to contribute to the success of your community, go to our online resource library. We have a lot there. Or you can, at our website, also quickly get a reserve study proposal for your association. So that concludes the formal portion of our presentation. And at this time, I'll turn the floor back to Paige, who will act as moderator for our Q&A time. Paige.